Hey, good morning. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Got my cup of coffee, a different cup, brought it from home, made a little, I guess you'd say cappuccino-esque. Have my espresso maker been playing with that steaming milk? Not really good at it yet, but hey, I've got this here, a little bit left, that coffee to get me through the morning. Hope you're doing well today, and as always, appreciate a few minutes of your midweek, mid-morning with me. We've been trying to take a high-level view for the last few weeks and on into the future, maybe for close to a year, of the story of the Bible. And we're still in the first book of the Bible. There's a lot that happens in these opening 10, 12 chapters of the book of Genesis. And we are in the period of history that is thought of around the flood of Noah. Actually, we're going to be just after the flood. Last week we looked at Noah and were reminded of God's grace. Noah found grace, or Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. And then the next couple of chapters details the flood. In chapter 9, Noah comes out of the ark, and there's a significant event that happens around a symbol, and that symbol is the rainbow. If you're like me, you may remember good old Roy G. Biv. I guess that's still the way that rainbows are taught. That Roy G. Biv mnemonic for the colors of the rainbow: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, as it goes in wavelength. I think it's from longest to shortest, or maybe from shortest to longest, the order of the colors through the prismatic action of the atmosphere after a rain. Beautiful rainbow. I mean, it's an incredible thing to see. You've probably seen that. We see a lot of those. Hey, we had some rain lately, and maybe you've seen that as the sun begins to peek through, or even sometimes you see beautiful double rainbows in the sky. And they're always, I mean, it doesn't matter where I am, what I'm doing. If I see one, it's still a remarkable thing to see. Now, I will confess, I don't know how hard I've tried to get to the end of the rainbow, that mythical pot of gold that's supposedly at the end of the rainbow. But in the account of the Bible, the rainbow has a greater significance, a greater value than even that mythical pot of gold. As Noah and his family come off the ark, as they are blessed by God to be fruitful and multiply, that echo of the Genesis blessing of God to Adam and Eve, here God makes a covenant with them. He makes a covenant and symbolizes it very specifically with the rainbow. Genesis 9:13, I have set my rainbow in the clouds, and it will be the sign of the covenant between me and the earth, God says. And I think that's pretty significant, that the sign of the covenant is between me and the earth. He goes on in a few verses later, it's an everlasting covenant, God says, between God and all living creatures of every kind on the earth. This just isn't a covenant between God and Noah, or God and Noah's family. This is a covenant that appears to every living creature of every generation that will ever inhabit the earth, the rainbow of God that says he will never again judge and destroy the earth as he did in this account by flood. It's a remarkable thing. And so whenever we go outside after a storm, there is that rainbow in the sky. People talk about the symbolism of the rainbow. You may have heard that in different ways. And one that I remember is the rainbow, the idea of the bow, like a bow and arrow. It's a bow that no longer has a string on it, but specifically it's a bow that's pointed toward the heavens, not pointed toward the earth, reminiscent of this covenant that God makes, this promise that God makes here, that he will never judge the earth that way. It is a remarkable moment. It's a remarkable thing that God does here. In fact, many people look at this and other places and say the story of the Bible is really a story of a series of covenants or promises that God makes to his people, in this case, to all generations, to people everywhere, which is remarkable. Some of the covenants are more specific to certain people. Some are more general. This is one of those that's very general, as it says in verse 13, between me and the earth, and in verse 16, between all living creatures of every kind on the earth. This is a broad covenant. And I've used the word covenant and promise interchangeably, and that's probably not, I don't want you to think those are necessarily equivalent, because a covenant in the biblical kind of arc of the story is a very binding agreement. In fact, we'll look in just a few chapters, God will make a specific covenant with Abram, or Abraham as we know him. And part of the way we refer to covenant sometimes is you don't make a covenant, but you cut a covenant, and we'll see then why that is. So hold on to that for a few more weeks till we get to that Abraham passage. But just to kind of spend these last few minutes here, the idea here is that God makes this covenant. God makes this covenant of mercy to all the people of the earth. And we've made that distinction. God's grace, giving us what we don't deserve. God's mercy, not giving us what we deserve. And part of the message of this covenant is, while we all deserve the judgment of God because we've all sinned, we've all broken his law, which will come a little later also in the story. We've all done things against the very character and nature of God and all deserve his judgment. God extends, as he demonstrates here, his mercy to us, where he doesn't give us his judgment. He doesn't give us what we deserve, the judgment we deserve. He withholds it, and he puts that symbol in the sky so that every time we look, we will remember. And just to be clear, the reason the rainbow is in the sky isn't to remind God. God doesn't need to be reminded. It's to remind us. And the picture of the story of the scripture is this story of God's activity with humanity that serve as signposts, that serve as reminders of who he is, of his grace, of his mercy, of his goodness, of his righteousness, of his justice, of his love, whatever words that we use to describe God. Throughout this book of the scriptures, we have these reminders, and they're meant to be for us reminders that we can remember who God is, so that as we face whatever we face, we have this backstory. Hey, remember, this is the God who is with us and for us, who has made promises, who has made covenants. And particularly as we saw last week, as Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord, and now this week as he puts the rainbow in the sky as a symbol of his mercy, God acts consistently toward humanity with grace and mercy. And the story of the Bible will build until the ultimate expression of God's grace and mercy will be found in Jesus. And this time of year, as we move toward Easter Sunday, can you believe we're just 2.5 weeks from Easter? I'm still kind of shaken by that. I can't believe it's right around the corner. It's one of the biggest days of the Christian year. It is the moment that we remember the death and resurrection of Jesus, and we're told in the scriptures, if Christ is not raised, our faith is in vain. So all of the story of God's grace and mercy points to and culminates in who Jesus is, in what he has done as the perfect and full and final expression of God's grace and mercy to his creation, that he has offered the possibility of forgiveness and salvation. And so we're going to be celebrating that. I encourage you, if you haven't already, look at our website. If you're in Key Largo, we'd love to have you join us, whether it's Palm Sunday weekend. On Saturday, we have a big kids event. It's not an egg hunt, it's an egg craft day with a petting zoo and lots of food and fun there, some games and that sort of thing. And then we get to Easter weekend, Good Friday, we have a dinner here. You have to make a reservation for that. Actually, I'll put the link kind of here so you can see the information and if you want to be a part of it. And then Easter Sunday, which is April 5th this year, Easter sunrise service. Again, we're very excited that we've been able to do that again this year at Penny Camp Park, 6:45 on the beach at Penny Camp, and then back here at 9 o'clock to celebrate the resurrection of Jesus. Why is Easter so big? It's this kind of a thing. It's this story of God's goodness and grace and mercy that we've already seen just in 9 chapters of the Bible. That God is full of grace. God is compassionate. He's slow to anger and quick to forgive. And he demonstrates that time and again. And ultimately, he makes it possible through Jesus. So we hope you will join us as we celebrate Palm Sunday, Easter Sunday, Good Friday, all of those things. And every Sunday as we get together. One of the reasons we worship as Christians on Sunday is because Sunday, the Lord's Day, the first day of the week, the day of the resurrection. So it's not just one Sunday a year that we remember the resurrection. It's every time we worship together on Sunday. We remember what God has done in history to provide for us the possibility of forgiveness, of knowing Him, of a relationship with Him, and of the salvation that only He can make possible. So, hey, 9 o'clock on Sunday, we'll be here, and then we'll be moving the next couple of weekends toward all of the Palm Sunday, Easter celebrations. Love to have you join us. As always, love to learn more with you about who God is and how He's demonstrated His goodness and grace to us through Jesus Christ. So, I'll leave that with you. I got about a half a cup here of my cappuccino left. I'm going to finish that up. I see I spilled it on the table. Oops. Clean that up, finish that up, and get back to my day. I'll let you get back to your day as well. Thanks again for these few minutes. Hope you have a great rest of your week.